Hey guys, welcome. Good morning. All right, so let's. I'm going to have someone read the first section. I'll make a few of Revelation 12. I'll make a couple of summary comments, and then we'll do the second section. Make a couple of summary, second and third. We'll do a couple of summary comments, and then we'll go on to the last section of 12, and then we'll move on from there. Okay. Who would like to read the first? Let's see, chapters 12, verses 1 through 6. Rob, please.
And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and pain to give birth. Another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems, and his tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven, and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour the child. When she gave birth to the son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, so that there she could be nourished for 1,260 days.
Okay. So if I could kind of summarize this vision, this part of the vision, it's very deep. Obviously, we spent 2 weeks on just really this some of this material. There was in the Bible tells us, and we're told here as well in a visionary way, that there was an ancient conspiracy, a primordial conspiracy against God by one of his glorious angels. Pre-fall, we call him Lucifer. After the fall, we call him the devil or Satan. Here he's put in the image of the red dragon. Well, the angels were given free will. And he used his free will to defy God and to attempt to seize power. And since then, he has set himself up against the plans of God. And the plan of God that we see here was focused especially on the birth, the life, the death, and the resurrection and ascension of Jesus. So the devil sets himself up against that. However, he's completely foiled. He's completely foiled. And the people of God, the Jesus followers, we're told here, have a special place in God's provision and his care, and that under the image of the woman, the church is provided for and cared for. We can be assured about this, despite the machinations of the devil. Okay? And so now we get to the next section, verses 7 through 9. And here we see some of the heavenly ramifications of the work of Jesus. Okay? Could someone read 7 through 9, please? Yes. Yep, Dorian.
Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that the ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him.
Okay, so you know how we're all familiar with how things work sometimes with people who don't pay their rent, right? What happens with people who don't pay their rent? Eventually they get eviction notices. Sometimes people don't cooperate with eviction notices, do they, right?
And they need the sheriff.
That's exactly right. That's the picture of what's happened here, is because of the work of Jesus. The devil was served his eviction notices from whatever right he had to the heavenly places. And we're going to see in a moment what his role was during his kind of legal, technical role was there. Well, because of the work of Jesus, he was given his eviction notices, but he didn't want to go. But so the sheriff came, Michael, the Archangel Michael, and he's out. He's thrown out, okay? He's thrown out of heaven because of the work of Jesus and the eviction he received.
That's why we still have sin. Because of Adam and Eve,
Yes.
the devil.
Now, but where does he go? Where is his locus now of activity? His locus of activity is not heaven anymore.
It's earth.
With the accusations, it's earth. He's thrown down to the earth, and he's not too happy about it. Okay, so let's read the next section, verses 10 through 12. Who would like to read that? Please, Rosie.
Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, Now has come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters who accuses them before our God day and night has been hurled down. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their life so much as to shrink from death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you dwellers. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury because he knows that his time is short.
Okay, so here's the angels in heaven are rejoicing at the work of God here, and particularly they are enthused about us as human beings. It's very interesting here that the angels here say this: for the accuser of our brothers. By the way, that was his legal and technical responsibility and allowance in heaven before the work of Jesus. We know what the devil does. He tempts human beings to defy God, and then after tempting them, he accuses us to God. Okay? Look what so-and-so has done. Okay? Look what a failure. Look what an unfaithful servant so-and-so is. Okay? This is what the devil's legal, technical role had been before the work of Jesus. But now he's been evicted from heaven. God does not listen to accusations from the devil for his people any longer. Okay? Because that price, the price of our sin and unfaithfulness and wrongdoing in the past, present, and future, that's been paid for by the sacrifice of Jesus, the Messiah. Okay? And so the heavens are rejoicing. The faithful angels cry out for the accuser of our brothers and sisters who accuse them before our God day and night. He's been hurled down, and it's very interesting that how the angels call us their brothers and sisters. You see, the angels, we are very much like angels in certain ways. We have been given the opportunity of free will to choose to follow God. Okay? Animals don't have that kind of a choice. We do. And so there's a kind of brotherhood. The angels also have that choice. So there's a kind of brotherhood there. And if let me turn very quickly. There's really a couple of fascinating passages later in Revelation that we'll get to, but I want to bring them in here now, where maybe you'll remember these. These are actually two passages. The first one's in chapter 19, verse 10. These are two passages in which John mistakenly falls down to kind of like give worship to an angel. And the angel chastises him twice on this. And look, notice what they say. This is 19, verse 10. At this, I, John, fell at his feet to worship him. But he said to me, "Don't do that. I am a fellow servant with you and your brothers and sisters who hold to the testimony of Jesus. Worship God." Okay? The angels are servants of God. We are servants of God. And there's this kind of a brotherhood there and sisterhood there. Same thing in chapter 20, verses 8 through 9. Again, John makes another mistake here. By the way, which shows we are not to worship angels. They are fellow servants along with us. And God uses them in our lives. In ways, sometimes we say some ways that we don't see and we don't know, but certainly we're not to worship them. Here's chapters 20, verses 8 through 9. Let's see. No, that's not. You know what? That's not the right passage. It might be 21, 8 through 9. Just a second. No, maybe 22. 22. Oh, yes, it is 22. Excuse me. 22. Verses, 8 and 9. I, John, am the one who heard and saw these things. And when I had heard and seen them, I fell down to worship at the feet of the angel who had been showing them to me. Okay, John, please. He's confessing a mistake here, right? But he said to me, don't do that. I am a fellow servant with you and with your fellow prophets and with all those who keep the words of this scroll. Worship God. Okay? By the way, this tells us too, worship is given to the Lamb in the book of Revelation. Okay? Which is more confirmation that the Lamb is, as Christians have always believed, God in the flesh. That's why worship is appropriate to Jesus. Okay?
And the lamb is supposed to be pure.
Right, he is, absolutely. All right, so again, in this kind of praise for the accuser of our brothers has been hurled down. He's out. He's been served his eviction notice and been forcibly removed by the sheriff. But where does he go? He goes, for the present, he goes to the earth to raise as much havoc as possible during the limited time that he's been given. He's still allowed to exist and to have some kind of freedom on the earth.
But it's only 148 years.
And it says here, again, but woe to the earth and to the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury. He's just been evicted. His ultimate plan to stifle this salvation from God has been foiled completely, as we'd expect. He is filled with fury because he knows his time is short. And so, what does he do? How does he engage himself? This is the next section of chapter 12 that we haven't looked at yet. Okay? So let's take a look at that. Who would like to read the last section of chapter 12? This is verses 13 through 17. Rob, please.
And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to a male child. But the 2 wings of the great eagle were given to the woman, so that she could fly into the wilderness to her place where she was nourished for a time, and times and a half a time, from the presence of the serpent. And the serpent poured water like a river out of its mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out of his mouth. So the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children, who keep the commandment of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, that's all the thing.
So what are we to? How would we put this vision in other words? Okay. What is John seeing here? As it's, of course, it's a continuation of the this kind of sidebar that we've been getting through for the beginning of chapter 12, the beginning of the little story. What do we see? What's happening here?
Serpent
Okay,
is
hold on.
Woman, but the earth stays up, and then he goes after the children.
Okay. And who is the woman?
The woman is the church.
Right.
But hang on. The woman's offspring are the believers. So what's that say about who the woman is? And the woman can give birth to Christ. So then.
Oh, okay. Well, you're both right in the sense, because we want to qualify or clarify a little bit of what Sandra said there. The woman, remember, is the faithful community. Okay, it's the faithful. Before Jesus, we don't call it the church, but it's faithful Israel, of whom Mary is like an ideal representative. It is out of the faithful community, but that humanly speaking, Jesus comes, right? He's born into that community. The faithful Israel that had been waiting and expecting for God to do something great and to act decisively in time and space. And now after Jesus, we call that faithful community the church. But here's where we're kind of forced to make a distinction here. There's a sense in which the woman is the mystical church, or the ideal church, or I guess you'd say later we're going to find out, the bride of Christ. This is God's people in all their holiness and perfection. Okay, that church, the Jesus community, in that respect, we're told here, is out of the serpent's reach. Okay? Nothing can stop the church of God. Nothing can stop the people of God. No human or spiritual power. It is going to continue. This is God's plan. It's going to continue to the end of the age. Okay? Now, all the devil can do, and it seems to be, talked about here, is, okay, well, the best I can do, I can't stop the church itself. Jesus said, hey, the gates of hell, cannot stop.
Closed.
Yeah, right. So all the devil could do is to raise as much havoc and to persecute and bring, even sometimes bring to death individual faithful members of the church community. Okay. That sees what it seems like what is happening here. Again, I can't do anything about this movement of God. I can't stop the Jesus community. But what can I do? Again, then the dragon, verse 17, was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring. Yes.
This is how I'm looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
How I'm interpreting it.
Yes.
The woman I see as Mary. Mary gives birth to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And Jesus brings all his followers together. That's Jesus, well, then the community of Jesus starts.
Mm-hmm.
But I see her giving birth to Jesus, and that's where the church becomes formed, because she was able to give birth to him, and the people had someone to believe in and worship and follow. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, it does. Except I think Mary. It's the woman is something greater even than Mary.
Right.
Yes, literally, Mary is is a representative, an ideal, wonderful representative of the faithful community. She literally gives birth, but there's a sense in which the entire mystical community of God throughout all the ages has been pining for, praying for, asking for, laboring for God to do this great intervention. And it continues to the woman. And so this is why the woman continues on. She is sent to a place prepared for her in the wilderness. And she's going to we're going to meet her again later in the book. She is the bride of Christ, waiting for Jesus to return in power and glory. So it's Mary, but it's something much greater than Mary, because we know Mary passed away. She's not sitting in the wilderness waiting right now, in that respect. Very much it's like the woman's like the community that God brought out of Egypt and took care of in the wilderness. You know, literally we're told, not literally, I mean, the metaphor is used that God brought Israel on eagle's wings into the desert to be with him there and to bring them ultimately to the promised land. And so here the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle.
Yeah, that just means speed.
Pardon?
That just means speed.
Yeah, speed and also provision. God's provision for the woman. Okay? And so this is a great reassurance that, you know what? You can, the devil could bring any particular Christian under persecution and even put us in a position where some of our brothers and sisters have been killed, have literally been killed for their faith. And that looks like, that's the best that the devil can do right now. That's the best. I mean, it's pretty awful, but that's not going to stop what God is doing. Okay? Yes?
What's the significance of John being so specific with how the devil's like trying to stop the woman with this massive battle with the gargoyle water spout and the earth swallowing that up.
Right.
When like there wasn't such specificity, for example, in the battle with Michael casting him out of heaven. Why does John feel that this geyser that's being swallowed by the earth is so important to mention?
Yeah. I mean,
It could be metaphorical, or it could be a sign that something is actually going to happen. There's going to be a flood. So, and like with Mary and Israel and believers, it can be both.
yeah.
There's this language is
Yeah. Some of it, yeah.
and this kind of literature
Mm-hmm.
has so many shades of yes, it's this and this.
Mm-hmm.
So even though God promised he wouldn't send a flood, now the devil's going to try to send a flood?
But not like an earthwide flood. This is like a river. So a river is never an earthwide thing.
That's a great response. I mean, certainly, I don't know particularly why the serpent tries to destroy the woman with this kind of spewing out this river, but it's illustrative of the fact that he's trying his best. He's doing what he can, and he's foiled once again. Okay, and so he turns. Yes, by the earth. Again, ultimately, God is sovereign over things, right? Right. So he's like, okay, he has to content himself with harming human beings, and especially the followers of the Lamb, even though his plans to foil the church, the movement as a whole, it's hopeless.
Yeah.
Yes, Jim.
I could just say something. Yeah, I think what we're dealing with is two issues here. One, you have the spiritual Satan. The other, you have the beast and the physical and the realm of mankind. And spiritually, we are protected completely against the spiritual devil. Okay? We're completely protected. So it says they're nourished from this. But then you have the natural. You have the natural kingdom. The kingdom's got authority over us. So this is where we have to get into God and just realize that in this secret place we're at in our Christian life, there's nothing there but Jesus. There's nothing there. The devil's been cast down, he's been gone in the spirit. But we're dealing also with a physical kingdom. Mm-hmm. Rome, or at that time Rome, or
yes.
what will be the the Babylon the Great or whatever it is, that will have some authority over us. So, that's what I see.
I think
in
that's
that.
an excellent point. I'm glad you make, Jim. I mean, I was saying that the mystical church is preserved by God. But there's if I can, but also our own souls, our own salvation personally is also secure because of what Jesus did. Okay? But we can still come to harm, kind of temporal harm in this world. Okay?
Correct.
Even if our name is written in the book of life, the Lamb's book of life, that is secure. We can still, through the persecution of the evil one, we can still run into trouble in this world, temporal, day-to-day trouble. It's true.
Yeah.
And this is part of where we come together for prayer, for help,
right.
for encouragement. And some of our brothers and sisters are even giving their lives in certain places in the world, even today. Because
there is this secret place with God. You build your relationship, and I think this is all what this whole Bible is about. Is that there is a secret relationship with Jesus Christ. That you can get before him, you can love him, you can adore him, and there's no enemy that can even come close to that relationship. You are safe, you are protected, you are the light. There's no darkness that can perceive the light. And anyone who tells you differently is really not being biblically correct. They're taking some Old Testament scriptures and they're twisting them, and but the truth is right here, we are protected, we are nourished by the Lord.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Excellent. Hey, take if you could take this next handout that I've provided. This one says, kind of has a gray box there. It says characters / symbols, Revelation 12 on the top of that. There should be some extra pages here if anybody needs it. Okay. Now, I thought this might be a wise moment because we're going to be getting into some really interesting and fascinating and potentially confusing chapters coming up here, especially 13 and 14. These are some of the most famous passages that we have in Revelation. Some of the most famous and notable characters we meet here. So I thought I'd actually talk through a few slides here, hoping to kind of get on solid ground for us. Okay. So here, the characters or symbols in Revelation 12. We just went over these. This is review for us. There's the woman. She's protected by God in the wilderness. Her children become the focus of the persecution of the red dragon. The woman is later described as the bride of the Lamb, adorned in splendor and awaiting his return. We talked about her already. There's also another character is the red dragon, also known as the serpent, devil, and Satan. Okay? We have looked at chapter 12 together and come to the conclusion, I believe, that it provides a unique view on the effects of Jesus' life, death, resurrection, and ascension, the effects in heaven and on earth. Okay, there's been an eviction in heaven, and in a very real sense, the persecution and fury that we see here on earth, this is part of our lot, and this is going to be true until Jesus returns. And as a matter of fact, it's a kind of a sign. The devil's fury here is a kind of sign of his eviction in heaven. Okay? The devil's fury here is a sign of Jesus' victory. Okay? So now, moving into Revelation chapter 13 and following, we have to ask these questions again. We've asked them again, and even Rob brought this up already. When we're looking at these visions, are these visions providing insights into the way things are in general? That is, are they truths about our world and our experience of it until Jesus returns? Okay? Or are they perhaps pictures of something specific that will happen in the future? That's like future to John and future to us. The third option kind of splits the difference here. Or is it possible that they could be both? Like they are true now in some ways, but they will be true to an even greater extent, or even maybe a literal extent, as we approach the very end. Okay? So I'm kind of thinking that third one is where we are. I think I'm going to be pointing out various ways in which the visions that we see are true now. They speak to our situation now, but they might be literally true to a more extreme degree in the future. It's possible. Okay? Certainly, we have to recognize that there are some things that are narrated in these chapters that are still future. Absolutely, there are certain things. For example, that includes the return of Jesus in glory. That's still future. Okay. Also, the demise of the devil and the beast and the false prophet, that's all still future. Those are actual events, still future. Okay? So, now we get to the symbols and characters that we find in Revelation 13 and following. Okay? Again, some of the most famous in popular understanding of this book. We're going to meet the beast. I think we're going to meet him today if we have time. The beast. Okay. Pardon?
I said, I'm leaving.
Meeting him in the text. But you actually might meet him just soon turn on the radio. You probably will. Okay. The beast. The beast has the same number of heads and horns and crowns as the red dragon. Okay. The dragon gives the beast his power and his throne and great authority. Okay. Another character we're going to meet is the false prophet. Really, the false prophet is another beast, but exercises authority on behalf of the first beast and directs worship and obedience to the first beast and its image. It's called the false prophet in chapter 19, verse 20. Okay? Now remember that in chapter 12, we were told that the devil was thrown down to earth and is filled with fury, especially against the people of God. I mean, the devil hates every human being on earth, simply because human beings are the image bearers of God. Okay? And so, but he especially hates followers of the Lamb. It seems that, this is kind of what I wanted to say, it seems like we just had that chapter in which the devil is thrown down to earth, he's filled with fury, he's going to go after the followers of the Lamb. And then immediately we're introduced to the beast and the false prophet. It seems like these are his typical tools that he uses for going after, the followers of the Lamb. Okay, these are his puppets, these are his agents, these are his avenues of attack that he uses. So that we're going to be picking up on this and learning about them. Because there must be a reason why we have to learn about them. Because John was given this vision, and he's given these visions to the church. So there must be fruitful reasons for us to kind of get, I get it. I understand now. Oh, now that helps me in my Christian walk. Because now I can see forces and factors happening in my world around me with clarity. I get it. I'm not, I'm not completely in the dark now, okay? So again, it seems that the beast and the false prophet are the vehicles through which the devil typically vents his wrath. In this way, chapters 13 and following, especially 13 and 14, kind of continue the sidebar that started with chapter 12. Or I guess it's either continues it, or I guess it's like, okay, give us more detail. Here, it's like, like we do on computer screens, the touch screens, we kind of like, we can expand it. Let's give further detail. Oh, here's more detail, church. You need to know this, okay?
It's the enhance button on footage in an episode of the X-Files.
Okay, yes, okay, good. You're right.
And these followers of Satan are his archangels.
Yes, they would seem to be demonic spirits, part of the horde of created things, angelic beings who became corrupt along with the devil. You're right. Okay.
Could they be the ones that were thrown out?
Yes, it seems to be. Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, the beast can be understood as the demonic corrupting power behind wicked governments and wicked society. Okay? Nations are commissioned by God to maintain basic principles of justice and righteousness. When they fail to do this and instead promote injustice and evil, that nation becomes beastly. Okay? And you see this even within the New Testament. The Roman Empire. In Romans, the book of Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 13, Paul says, hey, Christians, we are to, God has instituted government, for our own good. Don't be a troublemaker. Follow the law. This is what Paul talks about there. This is in when a nation or government is behaving the way God instituted a nation to maintain basic principles of justice and righteousness. In that situation, we should follow the law. Okay? We should be good citizens. However, any nation, any government can become corrupt and evil and beastly. And this is where the same Roman Empire that we're given visions about here is no longer the one that is ordained by God to maintain justice. It's now beastly. Okay? It's in attack mode against the people of God. Okay? So this is part of the picture we're getting. Now, that's the beast. The false prophet can be understood as religion employed not to direct worship to the one true God, okay, but rather to confirm, validate, and extend the power and influence of the beast. Okay? So this is wicked government, wicked society, and wicked religion kind of coming together, again, as the agents of the devil, to harm human beings in general, and particularly to go after followers of the Lamb. Okay? Again, this is kind of what I just said here. Unjust government and corrupt religion together turn their bitter attention against faithful followers of the Lamb. This was true in John's day, was going to be true to an even greater extent in just the decades right following John. Hey, John knew, because he had been told by God, that persecution had already started for followers of the Lamb. But it was going to get much worse in the decades following. So John, and the Spirit, through John, was saying, church, get ready. Get ready.
It started out with Herod.
It started out with Herod. Yes, certainly. He started out with Herod. Herod, his governance being used to attack, right? Okay, it was true, and it's still true in our day. It seems like it will be even worse as the end draws near. Okay. More of these symbols and characters that we meet in chapters 13 and 14. Okay. This is an actual mailbox on my, you see this actual mailbox on my way home from work every day. You know,
Yeah. Reminder.
you know, I mean, look, there's not, it was,
What kind of house does he have?
it's just a regular house. Of course, the mark of the beast has really nothing to do with this mailbox or this house. But for Christians, it's a trigger, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, but it says evil on it.
if this were my house,
It'd be
I
evil.
would not put it at least in so bold.
A little tinier, maybe
Yeah.
in Roman numerals. I
Maybe
don't know.
Roman numerals, I like that, Jim. Okay, so the marks, and look, there's a plural here, marks. We forget about the other marks sometimes. Under the beast and the false prophet, in these chapters, all humanity is forced to take a mark on their right hand or forehead in order to buy and sell. That is, to enjoy the simple freedom of conducting daily life in society. Okay, you want to conduct a normal life? You know, when the beast and the false prophet are in control, that you got to take the mark. Okay, despite that pressure, hey, Christians got to eat. They got to take care of their families. I'm under pressure here. Okay, despite the pressure, the followers of the Lamb refuse this mark and instead have the mark, quote, of the name of the Lamb and his Father written on their foreheads. Okay? These are marks of belonging and ownership. Again, maybe this is a literal mark in the future, and we're going to get to the actual meaning of 666, I think, next time. By the way, we're not meeting next week, okay? Maybe you got that email. We're not meeting next week. They need, first of all, I'm not going to be here. It's my wife's 40th anniversary. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And thank God, you know, but also they need the space. We're having a volunteer fair, ministry fair, yes. Yeah. So, but they're also, by the way, this week, I think they're going to be starting construction here, putting in new bathrooms. So who knows what we're going to meet, you know, in 2 weeks. I don't know.
That makes sense because if we figure out 666, we'll be the first ones in 2,000 years.
Well, I think that there is something literal, but there's also a kind of a principle here. Think about situations. If the mark is, you have to have the mark if you want to be an active member in our society. You have to have the mark if you want to buy and sell, okay? There have been many instances already in history in which governments have basically said, if you want to partake, if you want to have societal privileges, you can't be an active Christian, okay? Yeah, Karen.
That reminds me of just recently, vaccine cards and handbags.
Yes, okay. Let's say, now,
That's also like credit cards or anything else that we need to place. If you have a Gmail account, is that one of these too?
yeah, well,
It's very,
well, let's put it this way. What if you were forced to, like, if you have to compromise your faith, you have to maybe even pretend you don't believe, and in order to get along in society. What about situation? I'm reminded of, let's say, China. China has a pretty active database where all Chinese citizens have a social score. They get a social score from their government. And certain behavior will ding your social score, okay? And will make you an outcast and restrict the ability for you to be an active member of society or even to go abroad. And one thing that you can do that seriously harms your social score is be a Christian, okay? This, to me, has the same width as this whole 666. And so Christians there in China have to be, you know, what am I going to do? Am I going to be an active Christian and have my government put pressure on me and restrict my ability to buy and sell? Or will I compromise and take the mark? Okay? What about, I'm just going to say, what about a Christian, what if you were a Christian storefront owner? Okay? Even today here in the United States. Hey, we're coming up in, June is Pride Month, right? June is Pride Month. What if you have a store and there's a group coming around saying, hey, look, we want everyone in this whole strip of stores to put a pride flag in their window, okay? And if you don't, the implication, if you don't, you might see a decrease in business. And so a store owner might have to say, what do I do? I really believe that the pride flag, ultimately, when it comes down to it, is not really a symbol of we love all human beings. It's really a symbol of sexual deviancy, right? Mm-hmm. Is that something that Jesus railed against some of the churches in chapters 2 and 3 about, hey, sexual immorality? Mm-hmm. What do I do? I need business. I don't want to cause a big stir. Do I put the flag up there or do I not? You see? See, all in bigger and smaller ways, this temptation to compromise our faith in order to get along in society makes its appearance very, very often. And I think that there's a way in which this book of Revelation is saying, a lot of human beings are involved in this, but ultimately, this is a beastly thing, okay? This is putting pressure on the people of God to compromise and to conform. Otherwise, you're going to suffer the consequences, okay?
It reminds me of before on Sunday, those stores were open. And everything, that was the day of worship. And now everything's business as usual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, and that's a more difficult question in a sense because, but it might be along the same lines of, hey, I guess everybody, now Chick-fil-A, they do close on Sundays, by the way.
Jesus' disciples picked grain on the Sabbath.
That's true. It's a more complicated question. You're putting good point.
Sabbath isn't
Our
true.
society, it's not recommended.
Right.
Go to the marketplace.
Yeah.
Sabbath's Friday night.
All right, so we have the marks. Those are characters or images in these chapters, the marks. And also we have the great prostitute or harlot, okay? Especially we're going to meet her in chapter, I think it's 17. The great prostitute or harlot, a kind of ghastly opposite to the woman bride of the Lamb. Instead of being persecuted by the beast, the harlot rides a scarlet beast of the same description as the beast. Okay? She is called Babylon the Great, and in some ways reminds us of the city or empire of Babylon, who opposed God's people in the Old Testament and was ultimately overthrown. And in some ways, she reminds us of the city and empire of Rome, who opposed God's people in John's time and was also later overthrown. By the way, we're told in the book of Revelation that Rome would be overthrown, which is amazing. Nobody was talking about this at the time of John. But John was given the picture of the future that, in this way. So now...
It was given before Rome, it was Greece, but they stopped it.
Well, Greece came before Rome, certainly. The empires of... so going on here, the harlot, who is the harlot then? The harlot can be seen as the cities, empires, corporations, social structures, and people who ally themselves with the beast. And by so doing, they have become rich and indulge themselves in all sorts of excesses, without a care for the injustice and evil that it is all built upon. Okay? And so these are the characters that we're going to be meeting. Now, we are actually going to get, we haven't forgotten the chronology. Remember, we had the 7 seals, and then we had the 7 trumpets, and we are going to be getting back to the chronology too. We're going to have 7 bowls. So that the kind of time, the countdown in heaven for Jesus to return is still happening, but we're given these scenes and pictures about life on the earth in the meantime. And this is part of what we've got here. So
7 is a pretty prominent number.
yes, it is. Yes, yes, it is. So I think, we only have 2 minutes to go. This is where we are going to just start to be introduced. We're going to be introduced to the beast. Now, I don't think we have time actually to well, maybe we could just read it. You know what? Let's read. It's let's see. Well, let's at least read this very first section here. This is verses 1 through 4. At least to say, hey, look, Pastor Ray's been talking about all this. Let's see it. Let's see what he's talking about here. John, would you be able to read that first section for us? Yeah, put those glasses on, my
Yes,
friend.
sir. Where are we now? At the bottom here?
At the top there.
Top down. No.
Turn the page there.
We'll get
Yeah, that one.
in the dark?
Yeah.
No, the lighter part there.
Here, okay.
Okay.
Yes, Revelation 13.
Yes.
The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea.
Okay, just stop if I could right there. Okay, so there's the dragon who's been cast to the earth, right? He's filled with fury. He's got a plan. And so he oversees this beast coming up out of the sea. Okay? So keep going, John.
It had 10 horns and 7 heads, and 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and that great authority. And one of the heads of the beast seemed to have a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast.
And follow the beast, right.
People worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. And they also worshipped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it?
Okay, all right. So now we're going to find, of course, that again, all humanity is deceived. All humanity is tricked except for the followers of the Lamb. They recognize this, and they devote their worship only to God and to the Lamb. Okay, and they are faithful even unto death, if necessary. Okay, so just to leave on a positive note, Rob, how would you summarize the book of Revelation in one phrase?
God wins.
God wins. Thank you. Thank you. And Brian, you've been awfully quiet. Would you mind closing us in prayer? Amen.